So I'm glad to have you here. We'll jump right into it today. The U.S. is sending troops to the Middle East, and it prepares troops for the Eastern European front. Right now in our government, if you haven't realized, we have a bunch of warmongers in there. I don't know what to tell you. They are all... Let me pull that down just a little bit. There we go. They are all biting and chomping at the bit for war. That's all there is to it. That they want it. It's going to make them money. They're all about it. So we'll start off with this. U.S. to send more troops to the Middle East after Israel targets Hezbollah in a major Lebanon strike. Now, again, since I put these things on YouTube, I have to not say the word Hezbollah because you can't say that on YouTube anymore. I don't know why. Maybe because it's a terrorist organization, I suppose. So instead, we'll just call them the Lebanese, even though that's not entirely accurate. They say the Pentagon announced Monday that it is bolstering its forces in the Middle East as tensions between Israel and Hezbollah spike. The move with an undisclosed number of troops follows Israel's airstrikes into Lebanon on Lebanese targets that killed at least 274 people and wounded more than 1,000, according to Lebanon's health ministry, and increasing rocket and missile fire on Israel. In light of increased tensions in the Middle East and out of an abundance of caution, we're sending a small number of additional U.S. military personnel forward to augment forces already in the region, said Air Force Major General Pat Ryder, the Pentagon press secretary. For operations security reasons, we won't comment or provide specific details. Now, this comes as the Biden administration has spoken about trying to ease tensions between Israel and the Palestinians and Lebanon and everybody else in the area. Israel is not backing down, and they are just continuing to basically strike at anybody in the immediate area. So it's at some point this is probably going to escalate to some degree. I don't know if Iran gets involved at some point, but as much as they've been talking about Iran targeting President Trump and Iran messing with our elections, and at least according to our own government, Iran is the worst thing ever to happen to anybody ever. It seems like they're really trying to push us to get into a conflict and get things amped up out there. They say there are about 40,000 troops already in the region. The Pentagon has maintained a robust presence there since the October 7th attack on Israel, hoping to contain the fighting there. The new deployment was characterized as an insurance policy by a U.S. official who is not authorized to speak publicly. Given the increased tension in the region, the move is prudent but does not indicate U.S. troops were needed for imminent combat, the official stated. They say it's the worst day in Lebanon since 1990. The barrage of airstrikes on Monday, which hit across Lebanon from its southern border with Israel to northern regions near Syria, was the most widespread Israeli attack on the country since last October. With at least 274 passed away or ended, it was the single deadliest day since the end of the country's civil war in 1990, the Lebanese health ministry said. Israel's military said it had struck about 800 targets, including houses hiding weapons for the bad Lebanese people. Herzi Halevi, the Israel's military chief of general staff, called the attack a proactive defensive operations. We're targeting combat infrastructure that has been building for the last 20 years, he said. I'll just have to drop that word out of YouTube. That's all there is to it. Yoav Gallant, Israel's defense minister, briefed U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin on the strikes. I have a feeling with Biden in his current state, Lloyd Austin is calling all of the strikes that are happening that are happening in interactions with Israel. I do not have a good feeling that Biden is actually deciding what happens there or not. Thousands of Lebanese residents received phone calls from the Israeli military warning them to evacuate any Hezbollah posts. Hezbollah launched dozens of retaliatory rockets toward the northern Israel. Ziad Makari, Lebanon's information minister, called the phone calls psychological warfare and refused to evacuate the ministry. The attack came days later after thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies exploded across Lebanon in an Israel-linked attack, ending the lives of 37 people and widening fears of all-out war. I don't know what the plan is. At this point, I think there's a lot of people that they don't know the plans of Israel. They don't know the plans of the United States when interacting with Israel. Biden seems to, at least recently, or not Biden, I should say, but more like the United States and whoever's running this operation, Blinken or whoever. They're trying to put some distance between us and Israel. I don't know if they feel that previously the United States had some calls and had some control on what Israel would and wouldn't do, but it seems Israel's no longer listening, at least to many in the United States. Now they're talking about putting 8,500 troops in heightened alert as U.S. weighs military action against Russia. So now we're going to open ourselves up on a second front with a second adversary and a second, I don't know if you could call Ukraine a second ally at this point. It seems that way. They say among the operations presented to the president was to remove troops and equipment from other parts of Europe into Poland, Romania, and other countries neighboring Ukraine. They continue on. The United States is discussing the deployment of American military forces to Eastern Europe with its NATO allies, a senior administration official said Monday, as President Joe Biden weighs options for responding to Russian threats against Ukraine. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, same person that's involved with the other one, obviously, has placed 8,500 troops on heightened alert. Let me just put a pause there. You notice they didn't say Biden has placed 8,500 troops on heightened alert. They said Lloyd Austin. I think Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is the one that is heading things up in the Middle East and heading things up in Ukraine. And then I think he briefs Biden as to what's happening. I don't think Biden has anything to do with any of this anymore. He says Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said during a news briefing on Monday, he said no deployment orders have been given. I want to reinforce that as of now, the decision has been made to put these units on higher alert and higher alert only, said Kirby. No decisions have been made to deploy forces from the United States at this time. Something that is important to remember. If we really wanted to send troops somewhere and not have the enemy aware of what we're doing, then we wouldn't put it in the news, obviously. So when Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin comes out and says, we're placing troops here, we're heightening alert, we're preparing for this, we're doing this, he's not letting we Americans know what's going on. He's letting Russia and the other countries know what's going on. And this is a little bit of saber rattling. It's the same thing when Putin comes out and he says they're going to be running drills or they're going to be testing, their nuclear capabilities. It is not that they're actually doing that, although they may do it. It's letting the other person know, I am preparing for something. And it's kind of like, the best way I could describe it is imagine playing chess against somebody and you start taking your pieces and moving it up and then thinking about it and pulling it back and taking another piece and moving it up and pulling it back. It's not that you're actually going to do anything. It's you're showing your opponent that you're prepared. And that's a lot of what's going on right now, is a lot of saber rattling. How far it goes, I don't know. But if one or the other decides to make a move, then it's game time. It's game time. It may pop off. They say with Moscow massing more than 100,000 troops at its neighbor's border and no diplomatic breakthrough in sight, the West is stepping up in its response amid mounting fears an invasion could be imminent. Conversations are underway with NATO countries that could receive U.S. military forces as part of a plan to deter Russian President Vladimir Putin's aggression, the official said. NATO said Monday that it was sending ships and fighter jets to Eastern Europe and that Washington has also made clear that it is considering increasing its military presence in the eastern part of the alliance. Biden participated in a roughly 90-minute video conference with European leaders Monday afternoon to discuss Russia's military buildup on Ukraine's borders, the White House said. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Polish President Andrzej Duda, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, and other leaders participated in the call. Following the video conference, Biden told reporters it was a very, very, very good meeting, adding that there was total unanimity with all European leaders. The president said he would have more to say on the issue later. In a statement, the White House said Biden and European leaders reiterated their continued concern about the Russian military buildup on Ukraine's borders and expressed their support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Let me just mention this. They keep saying it's for their sovereignty and their territorial integrity, yet they keep talking about how there's billions of dollars of black, $15 billion, I believe it was at last count, of BlackRock investment to go in and build Ukraine when this is all over. You would not be taking BlackRock's investment money and talking about going in and rebuilding if this was about their sovereignty. Seems to me they're way more concerned about winning this conflict and then going in and investing and rebuilding Ukraine to be another, I guess you'd call it, satellite state of the United States. That's what it seems like to me. And in some of the other videos I've done, I've mentioned this as well. They say the White House said the leaders underscore their shared desire for a diplomatic resolution and also discussed their joint efforts to deter further Russian aggression against Ukraine. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California, has asked the White House for a briefing for all the House members on the situation, a source familiar with the matter said. A separate source said Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat, has requested a classified briefing next week for all senators. Do you guys remember when the left side of the United States, the left party, used to be about representing the people and not big government, and they used to be against pharma, and they used to be against war? It seems, I mean, it's one of those rare situations where you almost do have to say, it does appear that the parties are shifting. Right now, the conservatives seem to be more anti-war, anti-giving all our money away, anti-big pharmacy, and more for the small working class person. It's a very, very weird and odd thing in time that seems to be happening. I don't exactly know what's going on, but it seems that the Democrats have definitely shifted their policies. Biden was briefed by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Saturday about U.S. options for responding if Russia invades Ukraine, as well as options for U.S. military movements in advance of an invasion, according to defense official and senior administration official. Among the options presented for U.S. military in advance of an invasion were bomber flights over the region, ship visits into the Black Sea, and the moving of troops and some equipment for other parts of Europe into Poland, Romania, and other countries neighboring Ukraine. This means we're getting a little bit further away from proxy war and more or less announcing the United States is preparing for war with Russia. I think that's pretty key to mention in this. Austin presented options to reassure NATO allies and reinforce their defenses, specifically the defenses of those countries bordering Ukraine, the official said. The goal is to show unity and strength within NATO and deter Russian aggression against allies in the region, the official said. With all of this, I do want to bump in a quick word from our sponsor, my sponsor today, the Wellness Company, because I've talked about this multiple times now. If we're getting prepared, if the United States is preparing for war in the Middle East, we're preparing for war here in the Eastern European fronts. We've had multiple pandemics. They've continued to talk about bird flu and all the other stuff. Are you guys prepared? Do you have medicines you got to be prepared for war, basically, at this point. Do you have your foods? Do you have your meds? Do you have your water? Do you have energy or at least battery backup or gasoline or fuel or generators? Any of that stuff that's going to keep you kind of going along and being safe. Because if we do get into it, which seems more and more likely by the day, there's going to be delays on everything, and some things may become unavailable. A statistic I actually recently saw is 48% of Americans don't have any emergency supplies ready, according to the National Center for Disease Preparedness. I've got 6 months of food over there. I've got 1,000 gallons of rainwater collected that I can at least boil and use. I got solar panels, I got batteries. But you guys that are not kind of out in the woods like I am should at least get prepared to some degree. We saw how the medical and pharmaceutical industries failed us the last time that this stuff came around. They didn't want us taking certain medications. They forced some people out of work just to take the particular jab. I don't want to count on them, that's for sure. And then, of course, the doctors and the ERs. You know they're going to get jammed up, and they're going to have way too many people there if we get into something, because every sniffle, if there's no medications, people are going to be flocking that stuff. So you want to make sure you have your own stuff. The ones in the contagion kit, which is kind of the probably I'd say the one to fight airborne stuff. They've got ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Z-Paks, Tamiflu, budenoside with a nebulizer that you can breathe straight into your chest. So, all I'm saying is get ahead of everybody else. Be prepared. Have your stuff. Get one of these contagion kits. They're good for at least being prepared. You can visit twc.health /oddmanout. Get your contagion kit today. Use promo code oddmanout to save $30. And remember, these kits are limited, and they're only available in the United States. So make sure that you're prepared. twc.health/oddmanout. Get your kits. Be ready. Use promo code ODDMANOUT to save about 10%, $30 at checkout with ODDMANOUT. All right, now back to me. They say Biden was at the presidential retreat at Camp David, Maryland, and Austin briefed him via secure video teleconference. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Chairman General Mark Milley was on the call. Generally, the secretary briefs the president, and then the chairman provides more operation specifics. This is what I'm talking about when I'm worrying. This is what I'm talking about. Biden's at Camp David. Austin briefs him, and then the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, briefs them and tells them what options that they might be able to take. I don't like the fact that these people are making the decisions and then telling Biden, here's your options. And let's be honest, if Biden picked the worst option out of all of them, then they're going to say, no, let's not do that. Let's do this instead. These are people we haven't elected to office that are determining the direction of our country. I don't like that. Now, granted, at this point in time, they're probably sharper than Biden, who would struggle to sharpen a crayon in a crayon sharpener. They say Russia has repeatedly denied planning to invade and has blamed the West for stoking tensions. Quote, all this is happening not because of we, Russia, are doing. This is happening because of what NATO, the U.S. are doing, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said during a conference call with reporters on Monday. As Biden weighed his options, the State Department ordered family members of embassy employees in Kyiv to leave on Sunday and authorized non-emergency diplomatic employees in Ukraine to depart. It also warned Americans not to travel to Ukraine or Russia, citing the possibility of Russian military action. Ukraine criticized the move to withdraw diplomats' families as premature, while U.S. allies were split on whether to immediately follow America's lead, with the UK doing so, but the European Union saying it would not for now. So it sounds like the United States is pushing the charge against this. Ukraine said it criticized the move, and you've got other European Union members saying we're not going to be taking out diplomats and we're not taking out employees. Because that can basically almost make it sound like something is imminent, and Russia may therefore up its ante and decide, hey, I guess it's go time. Let's get into this. United States is playing a very, very dangerous game here and provoking Russia. And I see so many people online commenting, well, Russia has no chance. And if United States really decides to get involved, it would be over before it starts. But I think people forget that, number one, Russia may not necessarily use battlefield tactical nukes, but they could use smaller ones on other targets. It doesn't just have to be in the Ukrainian battlefield. Who says they don't decide to shoot something at one of our ships? Who says that China gets upset and gets involved? China is in an incredible amount of debt. For years, they've built these cities in the middle of nowhere to have government-funded ways to pay people to do work, and then these cities sit there empty and end up falling down. Who says China isn't like, hey, it's good for war, the war machine. Let's get the money printers going. Let's start building ships. Let's get some armaments going. And we need to use these things so we can make even more of them. We don't want to stockpile them. Who says China doesn't decide to get into this as well? Then Iran decides to step up a little bit. Just because it hasn't happened immediately, I've been talking about this for, a couple of months now. That each side keeps ramping closer and closer and closer. It's not like things pop off in the middle of the night. It starts with a little incursion here, a couple more people here, a ship goes here, something gets attacked here, and before you know it, then it's going to be getting big. And so let's not forget, and I've talked about this before. Yes, you can go way back in time and see when NATO started pushing up on Russia. But Russia's been escalating, and Russia's been pushing for this stuff. And it's easy to say, well, this is a proxy war. But the truth is, the more we're sending money and troops and missiles and the rest of it, it's not going to be a proxy war anymore. It's going to have to be direct intervention with the United States. And if that happens, some other big players might decide to get involved. I'm just saying it's something to be aware of, which is why I keep saying, be prepared for everything that's going on. They say the briefing for Biden included the latest intelligence that Russian military has not stopped building up forces around Ukraine, the official said. Another defense official said Putin continues to add more military units and flow forces to the border around areas around Ukraine. He's getting stronger literally by the day, the defense official said. The officials would not say whether Biden approved any movements. The senior administration official did say some troops and assets could be repositioned in the coming days. Air Force General Todd Wolters, the commander of the U.S. European Command and Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, has been preparing options for weeks, the defense official and the senior administration official said. Wolters has the authority to move some forces around his theater, but he's keeping Austin and military leaders informed given the gravity of the situation, the official said. Meanwhile, NATO said earlier Monday that it was putting extra forces on standby and sending more ships and fighter jets to the region, including beefing up its deterrence presence in the Baltic Sea. NATO will continue to take all necessary measures to protect and defend all allies, including by reinforcing the eastern part of the alliance. We will always respond to any deterioration of our security environment, including those strengthening our collective defense, Stoltenberg said. Russian naval vessels began drills in the Baltic Sea, focused on naval and anti-aircraft defense on Monday, the Russian state news agency RIA Novosti reported, according to Reuters. Also Monday, the U.S. military and NATO began Exercise Neptune Strike 22, which includes training with NATO allies for capabilities that could be used against Russia. As part of the exercise, the USS Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group will conduct long-range strike training and anti-submarine warfare training from the Mediterranean. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby says the exercise is designed to demonstrate NATO's ability to integrate the high-end maritime strike capabilities of an aircraft carrier strike group to support the deterrence and defense of the alliance. So there's many ways that you can look at this. You can say, well, Russia started this with Ukraine. NATO is moving in place to not only protect Ukraine, but to keep Russia from expanding beyond the borders. Russia says they have no plans of doing this. Russia has lied in the past. This is not a surprise. The United States says that Russia plans to go and expand further across Europe, but the United States has lied about this stuff before in an effort to try to bid support for what they're doing. We have so much data available to us now, and so many news stories, and so many people on the ground reporting things. Always remember that it's best to keep somewhere in the middle. And I don't mean middle of support, like obviously I don't support Russia at all in this. I certainly support Ukraine and the NATO allies. But what I mean by staying in the middle of this stuff is understand that at this side, especially when they're publicly saying what they're going to do in the newspapers and to the media, understand that a lot of this is saber rattling. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily really going to do this. They're certainly not going to say what their actual plans are. And so keep that in mind, that at this point in time, the United States is lying about things, Russia's lying about things, NATO's lying about things, everybody's lying about things. You don't have to draw a line in the sand and say, well, I'm definitely going to trust NATO and the United States. We've seen how that's happened in history, where they definitely have lied about things. And you say, I don't trust Russia either. They've definitely lied about things. Ukraine has lied about things. That's why it's so dangerous to get yourself in a camp where it's no matter what, we need to do this because this group said this is what's going on. You can't be like that in times like this, because you'll find yourself, again, drilling in on one side, not the other, and not stepping back and seeing a larger piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of Americans right now that very much feel like, hey, we support Ukraine, but we've got a lot of problems of our own. We're short 60,000 military member recruitment almost every year. We've had a lot of people leave the service because of the pandemic and all that other stuff, and they haven't been replaced. We've got a lot of people that aren't up to snuff in our own military. We just sidelined 17 ships because we can't crew them. And then to go around and start kicking at the heels of other countries saying, you better do this or we're gonna get in your face. I don't think that's a very wise idea. And I don't want us to see us, stirring up the hornet's nest to see what happens. I don't know. It's a multi-layered issue. And I certainly don't know what the right answer is, but getting all in bed and getting angry because you think you've got it all figured out because of things you've heard on the internet is not a good way to go about this.